Well, hello. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our Dreamtsoft Service Management presentation. My name is John Manseri and I'm your host. All of us at Dreamtsoft appreciate you taking the time to join us. So we'll strive to make this both informative and fun. Let me mention a few points to get us started. The audio lines are muted, so please submit your questions via the Q&A window showing up at the top bar of your screen probably. We'll try to answer your questions as we go along. There will also be a general Q&A question later on in the hour. The presentation is being recorded and a link will be sent to everyone as well as posted on our YouTube channel. I'm pleased to mention today we have a few special guests, some names that may be familiar to you. Bo Ruggieri and Jared Bennett, our founders, are with us today, as well as Donovan Stone. Jared and Donovan will be running the presentation for us today, and these are some guys that you may already know if you've been in the business for a while. Back in 2014, Bo and Jared established Dreamtsoft with the goal of creating a new platform to drive service management, free from the prior assumptions of how this type of software should work. They had a few things in mind. To provide a simple and elegant development platform to build upon and to have an application suite to go with it, to use this opportunity to correct certain architectural decisions that hindered prior platforms, and to combine increased value and functionality with simplified licensing. How we got here is an interesting story. If you look back in history, you'll see the beginnings and the evolution of IT support tools. We have seen the HDI days and the help desk. We've seen the dawn of ITIL and best practices and the service desk concept. We've seen the rise of the managed service provider industry. And we've also seen the rapid move to the cloud, the SaaS models, and artificial intelligence. Now we're going to see the next generation, and Dreamtsoft is part of that generation. At last count, we had over 100 people joining us today. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're an MSP, an enterprise ITSM support person, in education and government or otherwise. We all need to acknowledge that we're all service providers to our respective client bases. That's very important to keep in mind. We're all tasked with providing our clients with the best service possible, and the right tools make that much easier. Dreamtsoft was created to give you the things you need to perform that function well. As an example, we perfected our multi-tenancy capabilities, among other features, to deliver all the options that you may need to do your jobs well. There's some overlap and some commonality of tools and some functional differences to each of these areas, and we've designed Dreamtsoft to accommodate those, as you can see here, and as you can see here. Some core functions are shared, and some are, specific to a particular purpose. So now, let me introduce you to Jared Bennett and Donovan Stone, who will give you a tour, okay? And while we're going to switch over to let them run their demonstration, we'll see if we've received any questions in the Q&A window. I'll take a look at that. In the meantime, Donovan, I'm sent control to you, sir.
Wonderful, and I just want to check audio. John, can you hear me out there?
I can, sir. Thank you.
Excellent. And was there any questions that had popped up before I get started?
Not that I've seen so far. Please proceed.
Excellent. Thank you. So first and foremost, what we're going to start off with is Dreamtsoft is a platform, and I know platform is a term that's thrown around loosely, but it really is an application development platform. As John had stated, we have obviously been in the ITSM industry for a long time, so we've built our ITSM tool on top of this platform. But as I go through, you'll hear a specific theme with us, which is pretty much everything is configurable. That doesn't mean we don't provide you with some ITIL structure or ITSM out-of-the-box predetermined workflows, but we also recognize that every industry, every company is going to do business a little bit differently. So we give you the flexibility to take our standard workflows and functionality and then build that around your process. And unfortunately, we probably won't have enough time today, or we definitely won't have enough time today to cover full administration. We're going to go through the ITSM side, and then Jared's going to handle more of the multi-tenancy and MSP side. But in our next upcoming webinars, we'll go through more of the administration side, how to configure this, how to really make everything change. So I'll start off here. I'm looking at a dashboard, and like I warned you, this dashboard is completely configurable. So this is what we provide out of the box. On the left-hand side, you will see your left-hand navigator where you can go through and of course have menu options, and you go one more item over or one more column over and you'll see that we have something we call areas or custom apps. So the nice part about Dreamtsoft is if you do need to expand beyond ITSM, you have that capability of either loading applications that we have built or our partners have built, or you can of course build your own custom applications that are tied directly into the rest of the platform. Down below, we have something called bar components. These are, of course, used for alerting you. They're persistent throughout the platform. I'll say it again, it is configurable. You can decide what components you need down there. You can decide what your people need to be alerted on. And then in the upper right-hand corner, we have things like the global search, a timer, which I will actually get into, and then my profile. But the idea here is to, present the data that you need and be able to get some insight from that. Now, I'm going to jump in to start this as an end user. So I'm going to impersonate someone that would actually go through and enter in a ticket. So not a technician, not someone who's working on the day-to-day, but literally someone who might be in accounting or HR, who's not in IT. So we, of course, have an end user portal. This is pretty industry standard when it comes to any ITSM solution. This is our out-of-the-box portal. Once again, completely configurable. These are just kind of the simple forms that we've gone through. So as I log in at the beginning of the day, and I am, and this is Aaron Arnold, and I can see my user profile here. I may have just come back from vacation. I realize that when I go to log into my HR portal, something is wrong. I'm unable to get access to change my benefits, etc. So from this page, of course, I could do search. If this was an HR application, I'm unable to find anything. If there was an article in there related to CRM or something that was relevant, of course, that might be helpful. Down below, the search blocks give you the ability to categorize knowledge articles. So that way you can put that article front and center to those end users. They're able to go through and maybe have that level 0 or tier 0 support so they can solve their own problems. But what I want to do is be able to open up an incident. So the big red triangle here says, do you need help? I can come in and say, I cannot access my HR portal. The little red badges indicate a mandatory field. So of course, as you go through, you can design this form how you need. This is just a single pane form right here, but we do have the ability to create a wizard and ask continual questions. So if there was something like a screenshot that needed to be uploaded, I could upload it here, maybe an error screenshot, something like that. But what that's going to do is go through and then take me to my stuff. So I can see here that I can't access my HR portals incident I have. I also had something go wrong with CRM and also with Windows, in the past. So I can head back to my portal, and now I'm content there. As you go through this, you'll notice that there are some other options here. So ideas is something that we've thrown in with ITIL 4. Continuous improvement is huge. And that really is the main practice that they're focused around, because it is a foundation practice that allows you to continuously improve all of your other practices. So we have the notion of a continuous improvement register, which, very similar to entering in an incident, it's very much like a suggestion box. You're able to go through, and if it's software related, process related, you now have a landing point where you can go in and make suggestions. And then your project management team, your software development teams can go through and manage those through their own process, and possibly even in the Dreamtsoft system. And now they're able to make sure they don't lose any valuable information, and they're able to continuously improve on any of those practices. I already showed you the status page where I'm able to go through and verify any updates to my records themselves. As you can see here, as I slide this out, I have the ability to go through and send, information over to the technician, and I can have a conversation back and forth. And this is an end user view. It's very limited, only a few fields. As you can see up top, there is a security in there that is actually preventing me from seeing specific fields in there. So we do have a role-based security model as well. But the idea is to be able to have that conversation back and forth and then not have to really focus on the forms and fields, but really put that conversation forefront. And then finally, we also have a request catalog. If Aaron here says, you know what, in addition to not being able to reach HR, I also have a big marketing project coming up and I need to access the marketing share drive. I can go through, you know, we have new email blast, and I can put a duration. Maybe I just need it for the end of the month. And I can add that. It's going to take me to a shopping cart experience, say, you know, do you want to check out? And if so, that's going to take me to my request that I had now submitted. And on that back end, I'm able to track that. I'm able to see that. And of course, now that's going to the service desk side for fulfillment. So this, like I said, is the end user portal. This is a very kind of basic version, not branded, but you have the ability to insert images here. You have the ability to brand this with specific colors. And if you know you have anyone that knows standard HTML, CSS, you can really make this look very impressive. We also have the ability for you to utilize any of the frameworks out there. So if you're using Angular, you're using Vue, you're using React, any of those, you can actually import all of those and be able to use all that functionality. So that's the end user perspective. It looks like we did have a few questions pop up. I'm going to pause really quick and see if there are any that I can answer.
All right. Donovan, it's John. I'll read you a couple, okay?
Sure.
One question is, could you explain how you ensure you can upgrade the platform supporting all applications? An issue I have seen with many platforms getting stuck at some point. I'm not sure if he's asking about our application suite or things he may write custom on our platform.
So yes, you can upgrade, and the way, without getting too deep into the conversation, you have your applications that you can upgrade, and then we have our base system that we can upgrade. So the nice part is the ITSM is separate and can be separate from the base system itself. Now, that doesn't put you in version lock. And if you look at our applications, and I'm going to dive into this a little bit. So our service management application, we have a built-in integration with a Git repository or any Git repository. So no longer are you dealing with update sets where you're pushing and pulling or plugins. This is actually tied to a GitLab repository or repo that if we need to upgrade, we can do a new release and you can pull that release down. Same thing, you can do the exact same thing for your custom applications that you build. Now, as far as the system itself, we'll upgrade kind of that core base functionality as we go through and produce features and enhancements, et cetera, but they are essentially kind of disconnected. So it allows us to upgrade the kind of back end without having to, worry about the applications and vice versa.
All right, excellent. Thank you. I've got another
Sure.
one that came in, quick one,
Okay.
I hope. I'd be curious to know if we could import anything from ServiceNow, records, workflows, etc.
So records, absolutely. We have an import mechanism where if you need to import records from a CSV standpoint, you can simply drag them on any screen and it will initiate an import wizard. And see if I can find a real quick one. As far as workflows, this is still JavaScript. So we're not, in no way would I say that, there's an easy button where you can take your workflows and click it and magically have workflows appear in Dreamtsoft, but the similarities are going to be there. So I'll show you in a little bit our visual workflow editor, and you can get the concept of how you can kind of map out workflows. And there may even be some functionality that if you wanted to kind of lift and shift from ServiceNow, that might be applicable. But we also are a completely separate platform. So, there's not going to be the technical transition, but as far as a process standpoint, we definitely can kind of map out those process workflows.
All right,
And
excellent, Donovan. We've got more questions coming in, but I'll let you proceed with your path here, and we'll take a break again and answer some more as we go down the road, okay?
sure thing. So just to show you that, ability to import, and this is a big one that we always get asked about when mouse works correctly. There we go. So as soon as you import from CSV, you pick which bucket, and a bucket is a table essentially. So I always go to incident because it's got the most fields. And from here, this is where you can map out where you want to map, as well as you can pick, you want to transform that data on the way in, and we have functionality in there. So don't want to dive too much into the configuration side, but we do have that import capability for moving that data over. Okay, so from a day in the life standpoint of a technician, right? Now I'm going to log in as our technician, Alden Nolan. We do have the impersonate capability that I am using, so it really helps for testing. It also helps quite a bit for demoing. So that's what I just impersonated. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner, I am now Alden Nolan. And I've logged in, and I'm going to start my workday. And this is my service desk home. Once again, completely configurable. These are the indicators that we've included, but if you need to create different reports, different charts, of course, you can do that. So across the top here, we have more of the reactive indicators, right? Things I need to take care of today, sort of calculation totals. Open intake, I'll get to that in a second, what intake is. Incidents I need to respond to, incidents that need to resolve, unassigned incidents, those blind ones, and incidents that are older than 15 days. Now, hopefully you don't have 86 old incidents in there. Maybe you do. That might actually be a small number if you have a large organization. This is just old demo data, so it's all kind of clumped up at the end. Down below are more, hopefully, leading indicators. You might be able to get some insight here on the daily incident count. So we can take a snapshot of incidents, and as you can see, every midnight, I'm able to take a snapshot of how many open incidents we had. So any changes in the organization, if you have new training, if you bring on new services, you're able to kind of compare that to the number of open incidents and maybe draw some insight. And then your standard pie charts of incidents by category, priority, critical incidents, et cetera. All of that data can be sliced and diced however you need. Down below, can be knowledge articles or related records. So I logged in at the beginning of the day as a service desk technician. I can see that we already have an open problem relating to HR portal is being slow. And there's a ton of new knowledge articles. So these knowledge articles don't all have to be just IT related. As you can see, some of them are standard business related, but you can create a filter on that and decide how that's configured. But as I log in, I'm able to go in and decide, what I need to work on. Now, I could easily click on one of these and it will take me to that count. So I'll take me over to intake. Now, what intake is just a very simple kind of landing zone for people that fired off an email and may have not gone through the standard process, right? This should be an incident, but it may have been a request, and we don't know because someone just fired an email off to us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and convert that into an incident. I'm going to assign that directly to me, and we'll just keep it low and low for now. So that's going to actually change that over to an incident record. But the idea is that now, instead of having everything be an incident, you can have an intake area, which acts as a landing zone or a jumping off point. And if you have other records like requests or changes or something where you want to divide that out, now you can make sure it hits the right practice like incident management. Another area here is just going over to the My Work. So just like you'd expect, this is a consolidated work queue. So it doesn't have to be just incidents. Now it happens here that Alden only happens to have incidents assigned to him because he's on the service desk. But if I have visibility into all work, you can see that I have a consolidated work queue here. I have requests, work, I have normal changes. So you can now see all the work that is assigned to you in one single place. So I could see my work here. I can also see all of the incidents from a Kanban style board. So if I needed to, and I was running a team, I could come up and see what individual people are working on. I can, of course, create a filter here and filter down specific incidents. So it gives me flexibility on how I want to view that data, how I want to manage that data. if it's from a single list standpoint or if it's from a more visual standpoint. But Alden here is going to start his day. He looks at his list. He's able to, like I said, create a filter if necessary. So I'm able to see assignment users are me and active is true. If I wanted to look at all my data, I can see that. If I needed to create my own filter, maybe I wanted to see high priority incidents. It's the normal list that everyone looks for. Well, I can very easily find any of these fields that I'm looking at. And since I'm looking at work, I'll say, I want to see everything that maybe is in a new state. And I click the magnifying glass next to it, and that will automatically create that filter for me. If I go back, same thing happens. And I can see, maybe I want to see 4 specific companies. And we'll get to companies when Jared takes over. That's going to be more of the MSP side. Right now, I'm going to stay with as if this was an enterprise organization and there was only one company. So from the work standpoint, I'm going to dive into this incident and I'm going to say, well, what do I need to work on? This indicator here is a VIP user. That's a little badge that we've put that said, hey, this requester, Aaron Arnold, is actually a VIP. The nice part is this is configurable. So you can create not only badges, but you can automatically, based on conditions, insert those badges on the record. And the idea behind this is you're able to grasp visually using those icons much more information than having to go through a list and read them. So right now, being Aaron, I can see this is pretty important. I've got a VIP user. Let's take a look at this. Okay, CRM import leads failure. Looks like Aaron was trying to do something and he's unable. Well, first thing I can do is I might just want to respond back to the end user and just let them know I'm working on it. So I have that capability. If I want to get out of the slide out and go directly to that record, I can use the go to. And what I can do is say, I'm going to use a template. And these templates can be admin dictated. So like this general question here, where I'm going to populate, the person's name. And it's just more of a template saying, hey, could you please answer the following question? Did you update? Something simple like that. Your end user, or excuse me, your technicians also have the ability to create their own templates. And if they do, so I'll hit enter here and use that, and you can see it auto-populated the name here. But if you have custom templates in there that you create, you can use the / command directly from here to be able to use that template. And we'll put codes in there that allow you to hit / and the code, and then that will automatically send out that template. So if you're constantly typing the same thing over and over again and you don't want to have to use some sort of macro or copy and paste, we give you that ability to go through and put those messages directly in the system and use them quickly. Now, you'll notice that this was logged down below, but it's listed as private. So Alden Nolan, made a mistake, and this actually should have been a public message because I wanted it to go out to my end user. So you can see there's a toggle switch here that says public or private. We default it to private just in case you type something that you didn't want to go out. But if this needed to go out to the end user, you can simply click here and say, oh, actually, I want this to be public. And now that will automatically be emailed out to that end user or the requested by. They'll be able to reply back to it. So kind of a safeguard in there, but we still give you the ability to make sure that those messages can go out. If you want to type such a longer message where you're including images, video links, etc., we give you this full edit mode where you're able to go in, type your full conversation, put in your full editing, and then be able to go through and then send that off to your end user as well. So I'm working this. I'm going to move that over to work in progress. I might be able to put in a category or subcategory. And since I started working on it, what I should have done was I'm going to click this green timer in the upper right-hand corner. And what that does is that starts a timer that is persistent through the platform saying, hey, I've worked on something. We actually were inspired by some of the leading time tracking applications out there that made it very easy to be able to start a timer. And you'll notice that it's already populated the piece of work that I'm working on and the company. So this will be a big component later on when Jared gets into the MSP side, because as you're working with multiple customers, you are able to track which company you're actually working for. And then if you're doing a specific job as well as is this after hours, normal hours, etc. But the beautiful part about that is that can remain persistent as I navigate through the platform. It's not tied to this incident. So if I were to go over to, I don't know, maybe our reporting area where I'm looking, at a report, that still remains up in the upper right-hand corner, and I know that I'm working on it. And if I ever want to stop it, I can just click stop. But I'm going to go back to my incident here, and I'm going to continue working on it. So CRM leads are a failure. I might ask the guy next to me, I might have some tribal knowledge, but what's more realistic is I want to go down and search the knowledge base. So we have this relationship editor here, and this has become a huge part of our platform. This is where we can tie records from any part of the system to anywhere else in the system. So I'm going to add a knowledge record, and it's actually going to automatically go through and search for the title and say, hey, is there any knowledge articles in there? But I'm going to narrow the search down a little bit and type in CRM, and I can say, oh, look, there is new CRM data import. I'm going to click on that. Oh, okay, there's some more instructions here. It looks like we've updated this. Before I go through, I'm going to select this. So now I've created a relationship to that knowledge article, which can be extremely valuable for knowledge reporting down the road. And if this is valuable information, I'm just going to copy, maybe the first section of it. It might not all be relevant. So I'm just going to grab that, and I'm going to say, try this. And then post that over to them. Once again, should have flagged it as public. It's something that I always forget to do, so that's why we have this feature. And I'll just send that as private. Now those instructions can go out. Alden can come back, Aaron Arnold can come back and say that worked perfectly. Excellent. Well, I'm going to resolve this incident. Just like you'd expect in ITIL standards, there's, the resolution code is going to pop up. I'm going to say, we'll just say training provided, sent KB article, resolution notes, hit OK. Now, that is your resolution code. Another important way that you may be able to create knowledge articles is by flagging the information you sent here with stars. So this will actually favorite some of these comments, and you're able to go through and filter the important ones if necessary. And then if I needed to, I can now create a knowledge base article directly from those starred components. Now it's going to be raw. It will go over to the knowledge management team. They'll have to clean it up. But now, instead of having to filter through thousands and thousands of back and forth, your service desk technicians can come through, simply click a few stars, say, these are the important pieces, and now I want that to be submitted in a draft state over to my knowledge management team where they can go through and scrub it up. Or maybe you're okay with a raw knowledge base article. But either way, you can have that article created in the knowledge management. So that's going to be resolved in 24 hours or 48 hours, depending on what your settings are. That will actually go to closed, and then we'll send out our customer satisfaction survey. So now that I've had that resolved, I'm going to jump back in and take a look at some other issues that might be available. So these are what are assigned to me. Maybe I'll head over to all incidents, see if there's something else going on. Another VIP user, same person, can't access the HR portal. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into this and say, maybe send over that same template. And here I'll just use a template. I think it's 1, 2, 3. Whoops, looks like it popped up. There it is, 1, 2, 3. We'll just send something off to them. We'll start working on this. But the idea is that this HR portal is down. So I can go through and associate a service, and now I'm connecting to my CMDB. So in that relationship builder, I'm going to go over to my HR benefits portal and say, okay, this is the affected service. So I'm going to relate that. And now I know that this is related to that service, and I can report on that down the road. But it also gives me quick access to be able to view this service, right? This is for paychecks, updating enrollment, as well as what CIs are supporting it. So I can see it's served by a few Tomcat servers, but a better visual depiction of this is our relationship map, right? So just like you'd expect, we have those relationships that are built out. I can see that I have an HR benefits portal. I've got a little red star here. If I want to click on that, it will slide out this record, and I can see there is a normal change that is in there that has been created against one of the servers in there. So it looks like we patched the Linux server. So this may be the cause, and I might be able to figure that out. Now, maybe I know in the system that that Jared is that person that knows that system. So he might have been the person that patched it. So I can use an @ mention in there and say, can you help me? And what that's going to do is create a relationship for Jared. It's going to bring him into the conversation. So we're starting that ITIL4 agile swarming notion where now Jared is a participant and he's insisting in this. In the left-hand bar of his screen, he will get a notification on that bell saying you've been notified. But we can also do an integration with something like Slack, like I did here, where I now have a new incident that says, hey, can you please help with this? And I've got the link that directly goes to it. And if I click on that, that will take me directly into that, that incident. So now Jared can start working on that from Jared's Slack perspective. But this is huge because now we're able to, of course, utilize all the tools out there, whether it's Teams or Cisco Teams, and Slack like we use internally. And we can start to do that more agile incident management where we start bringing in the resources that can help instead of just passing it over to a team and letting it sit in their queue for days and days. This incident, of course, has some SLAs in here, time to respond, time to resolve. But as I saw on my portal homepage, there may be a problem record that this needs to be already associated with, right? Problem management might be working on something that I saw with those open problems with HR. So I can go into my relationship builder again, and I can do a search for HR. Oops, there it was. And I can see that they are working on a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that relationship in there. I'm going to say, I'm going to throw this on hold for now. And now problem management can come through and start to help me out, right? They're finding out the root cause analysis. They might have a workaround. So I'm going to quickly jump into the problem management world. I'm going to go over to all problems. I'm going to take a look at this problem record. They may be in the process of finding the root cause, but what they might have found is, we're going to use the old system in the meantime. So I'll put that as the workaround for anybody looking at that problem. I can also broadcast a message to all my lower incidents. So I can say, use the old system. This is not only valuable in problem management, but when you're working in major incident management, and you have to have that communication every 30 minutes to your internal stakeholders, your external stakeholders, you can then go through and decide what relationships you want to send that to, and that will send that out to all of those maybe related incidents in there. So if you're working in a major incident, you have a ton of related incidents, same thing with problem management, I can now relate that out there. So you can identify the root cause analysis. Maybe it was a recent patch. That was the root cause. So maybe we have to roll back that patch. So now we can jump into change management. I'm going to quickly jump into change. I could, of course, create a button up here that could create change management. I don't know how often that happens from problem, but I'm going to go through and just create a normal change. And once again, the company field is more for the MSP world, but I'll say, roll back patch. Something real simple here. What affected CIs and services? So it directly affects, and from here I can go through and select the individual server if necessary. And I think what I'll do is I'll create a condition where name contains, I think HR app is what we're looking for. There we go. I think it was HR1. But I'll associate that. So now I know it directly affects that. If it solves any problems, which I know it does, so that will help with the cascade in closing out that problem and the communication. And then, of course, I can go through and fill out my implementation test, escalation plan, any attachments if you have Word documents you need to attach. If this does have a financial impact or any risk in there, of course, you can set the group to something like network or operations. So I'll just kind of breeze through a lot of filling that out. Now, it's in draft state. As soon as I go to the approval state, we're going to go through our standard approval workflow. And I actually set myself as the approver for this. So you can see that this record is pending your approval. And if I were to log in at the beginning of the day, I would see my approvals here, as well as getting a little thumbs up badge saying, hey, I've got to approve something in there. And if I were to go through, simply click the thumbs up button. I've now approved that. And that a quick refresh on that will then send it to the next stage in its life cycle, which is scheduled. And I'd have to have a planned start date and end date. Once this is completed, I can go through, walk through my execution life cycle and then complete that. That's going to go through and close out any problems that I might have. So if I go over to problem record, you'll notice that once I jump to that record, this will be closed out and that problem record's closed out. And then any sub incidents as well should be in the resolved state. So I can go take a look at this record here. Oops, got a little ahead of myself. Jump to that incident, and now that is set to resolved. So giving you that cascade all the way back down where, everything's tied together, the workflow from change management can go to problem management, and of course go all the way back down to close out anything on incident management. So really doing a lot of that automation that you'd expect. So like I said, everything in here is configurable. It's one of our largest differentiators, as well as our tenancy. And so I'm just going to show you some quick functionality on this, just to show you how quickly you can configure something. Everything in Dreamtsoft is a page. So I have admin capability down below. So I'm just going to quickly edit this navigator on our end user portal. We have workflows that you can go through, step-by-step workflows, where you can add specific components to them. If I wanted to add a confirmation before this incident, something simple, are you sure? Yes or no, perfect. Now I'm just gonna drag that in there and hit a OK. Now that actually is changing the workflow on my submit incident management. Maybe it's something where I also just wanna, have another navigator where I need to go to a home page. So I'll copy the color here. There we go. Description, we'll just call it home. And let's say home, basically pick an icon. And what that can do is I'll just send that to, I can send that to home, or I could actually send that to, an external link. Looks like I changed the color on the other one too. Not intentional, but now I've got a couple standout icons. But now I can quickly go to Google if necessary. That can go to other portals that you might have in the system. And I change that workflow to have a confirmation that says, are you sure, before there. So like I said, flexibility is super important, and it's huge for our platform. But we do provide out-of-the-box ITIL for differentiators, platform, workflow, process, etc. And then another huge differentiator is our tenancy, which I'm going to pass the mic over to Jared now. And he's going to go through more of the MSP multi-tenancy world, but still tying it all back into the ITSM space.
All right. Donovan, can you hear me okay?
Jared, loud and clear.
Okay, good. Appreciate that. Forgive me, the Q&A has gotten extremely busy, so I was hammering through a few responses there. Let me show my screen here real quick. Appreciate everyone joining today. Can anyone acknowledge they can see my screen?
I see it, Jared.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. There's a ton to cover on this end, and we don't have the time to do it today. So I'm just going to do a brief overview of this end of the business, as the ITSM stuff is really the common shared stuff, as John alluded to earlier. I'm not going to waste a lot of time, but I do want to talk about very quickly what I'm showing here is going to apply to pretty much everyone on the phone. There are, as John said earlier, every one of you is a service provider, whether you call yourself that or not. Enterprise IT is a service provider. MSPs are obviously service providers. It's just a matter of, some of you service a bunch of companies or customers. Some of you service departments. Some of you service subsidiaries, larger companies like GE. All similar concepts and all very similar as far as your delivery model, just a little bit different in how we execute against it. So some of this will translate, some of it won't, but again, I'll briefly go through here and we'll keep the Q&A session going for anything specific. What I want to start with is that everything Donovan just talked about generally is going to revolve around a company. And especially with the MSPs on the phone, the MSPs are really going to be focused on the fact that there's companies behind all of this data. This threefold technology is what I'll use for this quick little walkthrough. So what we tried to do was we tried to centralize all of the data against a company into a singular location so that whether you're working change management or you're working incident management, you've got a CMDB, you've got locations and HR and CRM and all this other stuff that's going on. You've got portals that are being logged into and all these end users. As you grow your processes, it's important that the company reference, or at least the company centralized view, remain in such a way that it's simplified. You can't be hunting around the entire system, 14 different places to try to find this data. So we're trying to bring it all together, leveraging some of the a little bit more advanced data elements that we've done. But in short, what you can see here, hopefully, is what makes clear is I'm looking at threefold technologies of the company here. And if this was a customer of mine, or if this was a subsidiary of mine, I've kind of got a one-stop shop as to everything relevant to me. And those of you ServiceNow people know these as related lists or whatever. But here are my sales contacts. Here's all the activities that have gone on. Here's all the calls we made. Here's the opportunities that we've sold or not sold these people. Here's the projects that I'm working or have worked in the past, in this case, the onboarding project for them. Here's all of the agreements, especially the MSPs, those of you that are interested in contract management, entitlements, agreements. Here's everything that's involved in that. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Those of you, that, especially the MSPs, but even those worry about chargeback or bill back, those of you in government, here are all the invoices for this particular client, all lined up in the future, ready to go. Et cetera, et cetera. And I won't click through everything here. You'll see kind of what I'm trying to get at, right? But ultimately what we're trying to do is centralize this data to make your support of these companies as easy as it is on the other side of the house. Operationally, working an incident needs to be just as streamlined as managing a company. And so what you need to be able to do is surface some of these 360 views, or whatever dumb industry term you want to use today, that's able to take all of this data in a centralized system and bring it up to something that's going to be relevant to you to say, look, what did my customer buy from me? I'm talking to you MSPs now. Those of you enterprise people, what are the departments actually consuming of mine? If you're a strict ITIL person and you're a super advanced company, good on you, number one. Number two, then you're going to know that the entitlements model is relevant to you. Despite not being an MSP as formally, as far as not charging customers, you've got departments that are going to be consuming services. You've got actual services and all of that. This is all going to be relevant to you in as much as you've got to be able to surface that data and figure out who's consuming what based upon what they bought or what they signed up for and what it is that they're actually consuming. Now, from an MSP perspective, this is critical because as you go out to these customers, you talk to them, it's important you be able to display to them, this is the value I'm providing to you. This is exactly what it is that you've consumed of mine based upon what you purchased and what you consumed. Here's the difference, Mr. Customer. And so I'm either overcharging you and I need to reduce your bill so that I can hang on to you and reduce churn, or I'm undercharging you and perhaps I need to up my revenue, or perhaps I simply need to make it known that I'm providing more value than you're giving me. But either way, however you choose to consume this, being able to give you dashboards that say, what are my people doing on behalf of threefold technologies and when? Who's working on what roles are they playing at that particular time? My virtual CIOs, how much time are they spending versus my tier 2 help desk, et cetera? How happy is my customer? Are they thrilled? Are they irritated? Are they likely to renew? These are all critical questions you got to be able to ask. So our company view is really becoming kind of the center of our universe, and I'll wrap back around to that in just a second. But what I want to talk about for just a second is how it is you get a company onboarded into Dreamtsoft. Now, I'm going to lose a few of you here, and I'd encourage you to hang on for just a second. Give me 3 minutes, and then I'm going to talk about multi-tenancy, which will apply to everybody. But what I want to talk about very quickly is as an MSP especially, what you need to be able to do is define your product catalog or your service catalog or whatever, again, industry term you want to use. this is what it is that we do. This is what we sell. This is how much it is. This is how we define a tier 1 after hours. This is the work roles that we define in our system and the work types. This is the schedules we work. This is the packages that they're a part of. And more importantly, this will come into play in just a second. How do I handle exceptions? MSPs, this is the big one right here. What do you do when I use more tier 1 after hours than I bought? Well, do we auto invoice for those? Can the system surface those so I could see how much the customer is actually getting from me that they didn't buy? Things that they're not entitled to use, but we're actually doing them a service by doing. What do they owe me for that? Well, the system's been built to be able to handle that now. And again, we can go into big product catalog discussions at a later date. But then what? Okay, well, you define a product catalog, you gotta sell it, right? So you gotta be able to do basic things around selling. You gotta be able to go in and define opportunities, but not before you even get to the opportunity level. And I wanna be clear, I'm not trying to play this like a Salesforce competitor. It's not that level of CRM, but if you're an MSP, you may not have a formal CRM. So you can leverage Dreamtsoft CRM to be able to go in and do some of the basic stuff that everyone else has already been doing for a long time. Stuff like lead management, lead conversion, playbooks, just dumb things like, hey, for this particular contact, I want to run my ADR touch pattern. I want Alicia here to run it, and I want her to start it next Monday. Well, what do we do with that? Well, we can automatically assign work to Alicia. You'll see that 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 things here Alicia is now scheduled to do, and note the dates on these. We've actually forward scheduled a lot of her work based upon a playbook. This is what I need you to do to sell a customer based upon our research. Email them, then voicemail them. Then, now, most of you won't like this. Most of us are on the tail end of this, unfortunately, the spamming. But from a sales perspective, this is critical. How do you keep up productivity in sales? Well, we're trying to contribute to that model, right? So Albina is going to get the full court press based upon my playbook, and hopefully Alicia can do her job here and actually get her on the hook. Once we convert her, then we're down to the opportunity level. And I'll just very briefly run through this. Most of you know how sales systems work, but I'm gonna pick on Bo here, his Ruggieri Farms company. So this will be my Ruggieri Farms, managed services contract. I'll just say something simple as that. Well, what we've been able to do is surface the product catalog. And again, give me about 60 more seconds here and I'll get to the point. What you can do is, rather than letting your salespeople run amok, which is a common problem, you can't just go selling everything. You've got to stay within the bounds of what it is that we can provide as a service provider. This includes enterprises, by the way. You can't just promise to HR you're going to do something that you can't actually do. So what we've done is given you the opportunity to restrict the salespeople to keep them within the bounds of the product catalog you define. Basic things like, look, if you're going to sell a router, cool, but I've got a default price. If you're going to go sell someone two routers and 2 pieces of hardware, awesome. And you'll see all the prices increase here and whatnot, right? I continue to go on shopping, but I'm going to go grab a product item. I'm actually going to sell some VCIO hours. I'm going to sell 100 of those, etc. I'll do one more and then I won't belabor this any further. So we're starting to get a decent sized bill from a monthly perspective. Now, what do I do? Well, you need more than that, obviously. So what you need to be able to do is surface what we call a sales calculator. How many users? So a salesperson doesn't always know the context of the services you're providing. Well, why not be a little bit more prescriptive internally? Instead of asking your salespeople to magically do this, or worse, doing it in Excel, why don't you just ask them a survey? And you can do that. Well, there's 110 users in this company. They have 230 devices. They've got 3 locations. And again, this is all completely configurable by you. They're a mature organization, but they have an inconsistent or misconfigured network. Click OK, and what it does is it'll munge all that data based upon the algorithm that you choose, and it'll prescribe a series of services that says, Mr. Sales Guy, this is what they need. They need $36,000 a month in managed IT services, which, if I click on it, is made up of these elements, right? And of course, you can go in, you can negotiate this out. You can say, all right, I'll give you $100 an hour. And you probably don't need as many of those, so I'll give you 90 of these. So the sales guy still has the capability to go ahead and flex this as they need to, but ultimately you're giving them the ability to operate within the bounds that the business can tolerate, right? More than that, we've done some of the basic forecasting. So you want to go through and, okay, I'm moving this from prospecting to qualification. Cool. Well, what does that do? Well, that gives me some forecast here. You don't get credit for the whole 50 grand because we don't know if we're going to close this thing yet. But the fact that you're in qualification means there's a percentage. And of course, all of this is configurable by you. This is all just made up demo data at this point. This is all going to be part of your implementation and all configurable by basic administration. Sales executives, sales leadership can do this. So ultimately, hopefully, if I do my job, I'm going to get to where I close this thing. And here's the real gist of it. Right now, I forgot one thing, so I'm going to stop for just a second. I closed the deal. So I've got $48,000 in monthly recurring revenue that's going to come down. And of course, the salesperson will be credited for that and all of that, right? So I got my $50,000. Great. So what I would have done before that, so, and apologies for kind of going out of order here, is you also need the ability to be able to quote the customer without having to go to a separate system. We see this over and over and over again. Quoter and Quozal and all these other different systems we see. It's ridiculous. What you need to be able to do is take an opportunity, convert it to a quote, and simply send it to the customer right there in the same meeting, where you have a PDF that gets generated and says, Mr. Customer, this is what we talked about. I'll await your call back, or whatever you want to do. And of course, this PDF designer is configurable as well. You can do whatever you want. That's a basic quote. But the idea is you don't have to bolt on anything anymore. No more add-ons, no more, 75 different products you have to manage and try to integrate. Most of these basic functions should be part of the platform that you purchase as part of your centralized system, right? So you quote, you close. So what happens now? Well, automation kicks in. It's not just a CRM anymore. I need to know that this customer, Ruggieri Farms, is actually a customer now. Well, what we do when we close a deal is we automatically create the agreements. We automatically know that there's a managed services agreement, there's a hardware agreement, and I've got a master services agreement with Ruggieri Farms. So I'm well on my way to onboarding this customer without doing anything else. And what I'm going to do is let me flip over to Ruggieri Farms here. And I'm gonna operate a few functions to kind of lead into my next guy. So I've defined a product catalog. I sold Ruggieri Farms. We worked through the sales process. And now I'm in a process where now I'm going to work a project. Where is it? Here we go. I'm going to work a project to be able to onboard. Now you'll note this looks exactly like Threefold did just a second ago. The only difference is I've got different lists of things and opportunities and whatnot. I've got an onboarding project that can come in if I want, and then I've got my agreements here. Now my agreements, I'm going to go into my master, and I'm going to set this up. Okay, it's a monthly billing cycle. Cool. I'm going to put this in my Pacific time zone. I'm going to start it, let's say 2 days ago. We'll be able to post data, and then I'm going to end this December. So let's just be a short contract for that, right? But without doing anything else, I can work this, I can get approvals, whatever I need to do, but at some point I'm going to activate this. And for purposes of time, I'm just going to do that immediately right now. And again, as part of the automation, not only do we automatically create the agreements and automatically create the entitlements model, but we're also going to go ahead and onboard this agreement as far as all of the notions that we can possibly predict ahead of time, including how many invoices we need to send this person. I've got 45/7 right out the chute that I need to send 4 times this year, based upon just the dates that you gave me, right? I've also got child agreements. I've got hardware and managed services here, all with their designated number of hours that you can use. VCIO, you got 100 of those. Within Manage IT, you get 110 service desk hours and 230 knock hours. Very specific, very granular level entitlements. Why? Well, if I can, obviously we'll get back to Ruggieri Farms here in a minute, but if I can go back to Threefold here, because you need to be able to charge back certain things that they go over on. And that's one of these things the system struggles with. If you saw Donovan just a moment ago, his people are tracking time constantly in there. They're constantly in there working time, working incidents and changes and all this other stuff. What is it that the system needs to be able to track to be able to surface some of the overage that may be killing your bottom line? Well, the first thing they need to be able to do is they got to be able to go in and from an agreement perspective, it's got to start tracking what it is that you're leveraging, what it is that you're using. So for this particular, let me go back one, this particular billing cycle, let me go back, hold on just a second. Agreements, this is my master. For the cycles here, let me go into the August cycle for Threefold here. So look at all the time entries. This is automatically being collected every single time Efreda or Armand or Blair puts in time. It's tracking the agreement. It's finding the agreement for them without them having to do the work. It's tracking the work that they're actually working on, and it's checking it against this particular billing cycle, against this particular set of entitlements to ensure that you're not going over, to ensure that this invoice of $34,000 in this case is going to remain intact. However, what happens sometimes is that they actually use too much. And so what we can do now is we can surface some of these. You'll see these kind of surfaced here. 2 after hours, well, what happened? Well, you used an hour and a half too many. Normal hours, you use 6 too many. This is the total price that you owe me for this, Mr. Customer. This is what it is that you're gonna have to pay me back to ensure that I'm made whole as a result of servicing you as best I possibly can. Right? And so we're doing this automatically. That's what's cool about this, is if you go to the agreement section, and if I go to my threefold here, what we have is the ability to go in and, I keep going the wrong one, managed services, blah, 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 blah. Oh, master, here it is. Right? From a billing cycle to billing cycle perspective, we have the ability now to go in and track these exceptions. We have a logic that can now run at the end of the month that says, okay, based upon everything I sold you and everything you used, this is what the difference is. So I can either tell you about this and provide value, or I can bill you back for it. So agreement exceptions, and then kind of come in full circle. That leads us right back to that kind of 360 diagram, is how do we surface financial data? How do we surface entitlement, overages, underages? How do you keep customers happy? Well, that's how you do it. You get your CRM in place, your product catalog in place, you track all of the work in the same place all of the time, and you roll it all up into this master dashboard, all right? So what I'm going to do now is, in the interest of time, because we're going to run out of time very quickly here, is let me jump into multi-tenancy. So I've got Ruggieri Farms here, right? So Ruggieri Farms bought, I'm onboarding them, they're thrilled, great. What is it Dreamtsoft does any different than anybody else? Because that's really on you. It's more of a process that you're doing. Well, one of the major things we'd be able to do right out the chute is we're able to give Ruggieri Farms their own world. And what I mean by that is I can give them their own tenant, is what the term, what the industry uses, unfortunately, their own environment, their own Dreamtsoft portal, the place that they can log in with their own branding and their own users and their own data and everything else without ever having to worry about their data being bled over into someone else's workspace, someone else's tenant or whatnot. All of that is built in natively to the system, and I'll show you how that works right now. So I've got Ruggieri Farms here. What I'm going to do as part of my onboarding is create a subspace. Let me copy the name here just for time purposes. Create a subspace. We'll call it Ruggieri Farms. I'm going to parent that to my webinar space. This is the demo one we're using for today. Is that production or development? That's going to come into play here in just a second. And I actually want to use a prepackaged set of bundles for these people, or applications. And so Ruggieri Farms, without doing anything else in about 10 seconds, has gone from selling it to the agreement management, to onboarding the agreements, and now genuinely giving them their own plan. And without doing anything else, you can see this in here. Here's Ruggieri Farms. MSPs on the phone, check this out. This is your company drop down. This is how you jump from company to company if you so choose to do so. Here's Ruggieri Farms. And if I click on that, I'm going to go into Ruggieri Farms. You'll see it already has service management installed. This is the beginnings of the Ruggieri Farms implementation. This is their catalog. This is their incident queue. This is their incident dashboard. Now, some of them may not have permissions to see this or not, but in very short order, what I can do now, this was a question on the Q&A, is I can add logos to this. I can put their logo on here. I can change their authentication title. I can change how it's laid out. I can change their email address to something more specific, like a Gmail account or an Office 365 account. I can change this from Dreamtsoft to, Farm World. Right? And you'll notice not a developer has to do this. Very simple, very easy to do, very quick to onboard, very easy to train. And without doing much else, Ruggieri Farms starts to take shape here. You'll note the basic thing is that the tab up here has changed. I've changed the name of it. I can logo it, I can style it, and now I can start to onboard my customer as needed. So that's the onboarding process for a customer, at least the beginnings of an onboarding process for a customer. And again, we'll have other webinars to do that. But what I want to touch in at the end here is multi-tenancy. What you saw me do, and in fact, let me just back up a little bit. What Donovan did his entire demo was actually done in a very small portion of this environment. He did everything that you saw, that entire ITSM demo, all the data, all the process, all of that was done within this webinar environment. But in fact, this webinar environment serves as a parent to dozens of different production customers. MSPs, these are your customers. This is where they're going to log in. Calaveras people are going to log into Calaveras. You'll note Ruggieri Farms that I just hopped down to. Their people are going to log into Ruggieri Farms. The webinar people up here, the MSP people are going to exist up top, and they're going to have a superset of data for all of their customers, but the customers have no idea each other exists. Genuine, true, zero trust tenant isolation. Somebody asked about a differentiator, especially for MSPs. That's it. Tenant isolation, regulatory compliance problems, security problems. This is the clincher. Ruggieri Farms has got to know that their data is safe, that they're in an isolated world, that there's absolutely nothing bleeding over from Calaveras, and more importantly, that they don't have to be restricted to operating the way the MSP says they have to. There's nothing in the world that says Ruggieri Farms can't have a different request portal than everyone else. This is another major differentiator for those of you familiar with some of the other products out there. When I go to my request catalog in Ruggieri Farms, I can, just like Donovan did, rather than making master changes, I can remove things out of here, simplify my customer's experience. And from that point forward, Ruggieri Farms has a simplified catalog while everyone else does not. We maintain an isolated set of changes for each one of these applications installed on every workspace independently in their own Git repository. It's a very advanced, almost a web-based IDE version of managing your customer's experience. All right. I'll go back and say one more thing as far as the tree here is concerned. For those of you non-MSPs, doesn't matter. You may not have customers, you may have departments, you may have subsets, but what I do know for a fact is even if you're not at that level, what you absolutely do have is the need for a development, sandbox, QA environments. How do you do that in my competitors' products? Well, you call them and you get other environments, right? Or worse than that. That's not the way moving forward. In Dreamtsoft, you simply spin up a new workspace, just like I did with Ruggieri Farms. Here's Ruggieri Farms. They got their production people logging in. Here's Solana Dev. Here's all my developers and their own individual sandboxes. Here's all of my releases if I want to develop at that layer, just like you would in any kind of sprint cycle or whatnot. We have customers that literally create a brand new tenant for every single sprint that they do every single week. And so what? What's the difference? It doesn't matter anymore. So ultimately, if releases, if I want to create my, Q4 2020 space in here, it's the same as I did before. This is going to be a development space because we're going to have people playing with it, and I'll load service management onto it. And in about 10 seconds, you've spun up a brand new environment that is isolated. Its own data, its own experience, its own branding, its own permissions and security, but without having to call me or pay me 20 grand for it. So multi-tenancy native, built in to the core of it to be able to support the enterprises, the MSPs, and everybody in between. That's one of the major things you got to take away from today is Dreamsoft's differentiators as far as multi-tenancy. As the compliance and regulatory environments get worse and get more strict, this will become mandatory. You cannot commingle data with customers any longer. You certainly cannot get away with things that used to be called company separation or the kind of the Salesforce model. You've genuinely got to get into a little bit more zero trust style isolated tenancy. All right. So just as kind of a review there. So I've got companies being worked, incidents being worked by the master company here, the MSP or the enterprise IT department. Within that, they're managing dozens or even hundreds of other companies within that from a centralized queue. Each one of these customers got their own world. And then, of course, I'm managing a sales team trying to intake all these people, projects that are trying to make sure that the onboarding goes smoothly, and then an ever-growing product catalog. A product catalog that's going to mature over time, and a model that says that if you introduce something in January and you take it away in June and replace it with something else, you can still offer January's customers the new model. You just have to make sure you account for the overage and the entitlements and the exceptions, and that's something that we do natively. So last thing I'll say to that is the next step for us that'll be happening within the next month. is the full-scale invoicing model. We have the invoicing plumbing in place. We're going to integrate with a few products and make sure that the invoices that we do create are able to be sent out to the QuickBooks of the world and all the other elements, because we have all the data to now drive what is close to an automated billing process. We're not quite there, but we're getting there very quickly. All right. So with that, I'm going to stop and take a breath. Apologies for the dump there. Donovan, John, are there any questions that we can answer?
Well, thank you for that. We've got questions coming in, and the panel's been answering them. We've answered 31 so far. We've got a few more coming in here regarding a few different topics. I think the panelists have been hammering out those answers probably better than I could, Jared. So I think we've covered pretty much everything, and we'll continue to do so here in the next few minutes as I close this out. So if you have any more questions, please put them into the Q&A window, and the panelists will get to them. We've only got 3 open ones at the moment, okay?
Well, then John, back to you.
Thank you. Let me get the share going, and we'll close this out and let you folks get on your way. All right. So guys, thank you, all of you, for attending. First of all, you guys have been a great crew, a lot of attendees, a ton of questions, and we strive to get them all answered, and we'll continue to do so. If for some reason yours got missed, or we didn't give you a satisfactory answer, write to me, okay? Or write to someone, info@dreamtsoft.com, and we'll get to that, okay? As we've shown you today, we provide here at Dreamtsoft the platform of the future, and it can serve a lot of different needs while at the same time providing the options and configurations and custom workflows that you guys need, okay? We invite you to go ahead and call us for a custom demonstration, a presentation tailored to your unique situation. Because we're all in the service industry, we're all service providers, but everybody's nuances are a little bit different, okay? Now we're going to send you a recording link so you can take a look at that, share it with your folks, and so on. Some of the other discussion points you've been asking about, or people have asked about in the past, many of these on the screen now have been asked here today, and we continue to go ahead and do those. We talked about the window being open fine. Your questions have been taken care of. All I can say is we're going to have a follow-up presentation coming here in the coming weeks, regarding the configuration and the other things in the development platform that we can do for you, okay? We'll have a similar situation. We'll have a Q&A session. We'll show you how to configure the system, how to do development of custom applications, the things you asked about, how do you create a custom portal for your client base, and so on. So we're looking forward to doing that for you. That will be announced, and we'd love to have the same amount of people show up for that. So we've kind of reached the end of our time. We're over by a little bit. But again, the recording will be able to help you review what we've seen today. We want to thank all of you for attending. I want to thank Donovan and Jared and also Bo for the fine work to get this all together. We wish you a great day. And again, all the best to you and yours. We're done for today. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.